I'm going to provide a very brief overview and context of this webinar. We are the European Network of Living Labs. So we are partners to the PREPSOIL project and leaders of the work package devoted to living labs and lighthouses. So a very brief introduction of ENOL. ENOL is the European Network of Certified Living Labs that has been founded in 2006 under the EU presidency of Finland. Since then, ENOL facilitates knowledge exchange, joint action, and project partnership among its members. And the goal of ENOL is to promote the living lab concept, influence policies, enhance living labs, and enable their implementation at global level. So our mission is to be an ambassador of European values of co-creation and open innovation, fostering the capacities and knowledge of our members, potential living labs, and external stakeholders to increase their opportunities for growth and value creation. In this line, we offer different services. So mainly the certification and labeling, the capacity building learning programs, and our thematic action-oriented task forces and working groups that allow for a knowledge exchange and collaboration on hot topics as rural living labs, energy and environment, social innovation, artificial intelligence, agriculture and agri-food, and many others. Okay, so this figure represents where our Living Labs members of ENOL come from. So as you can see, 21% come from the government, so meaning specialized agencies, municipalities, and other local regional authorities. So 33% come from academia and research centers, 23% from civil society, 14% from private organizations with a direct for-profit objective, so mainly small and medium enterprises, and 9% come from public and private partnerships. Okay, so moving now to the PREPSOIL project. We are partners to the PREPSOIL project, as commented. PREPSOIL is a preparatory action of the mission A Soil Deal for Europe. So as most of you might be aware, according to the soil mission, between 60 and 70% of all soils in the EU are in unhealthy conditions. There is a lack of knowledge, awareness, and education that affects its capacity to provide ecosystem services. Also, there is insufficient access to data and knowledge and lacking capacities for monitoring soil health. And in this sense, and as a preparatory action, PREPSOIL activities are intended to support the induction phase and rollout of the mission. So to lead the transition towards healthy soils, the soil mission aims to establish 100 living labs and lighthouses. Soil health living labs are defined by the soil mission as collaborative initiatives to co-create knowledge and innovation. They are user-centered, place-based, and transdisciplinary research and innovation ecosystems, which involve stakeholders of different nature in systemic research and co-design, testing, monitoring, and evaluation of solutions in real-life settings. Whereas soil health lighthouses refer to individual sites of exemplary performance in terms of soil health improvement. Yes. Moving to the PREPSOIL project, we have assessed soil needs in 19 regions across Europe each representing different conditions and land uses. So you can download the report from Zenodo. Also, indicators are being assessed to monitor different land uses, exploring Earth observation and citizen science. I'll present in the next slide the work package devoted to Living Labs. And last, our web portal hosts spaces for interconnection and promotes best practices and dialogues with soil advocates. Okay, so coming to the piece devoted to soil health living labs and lighthouses, they are being included in a map. Also, those initiatives that aspire to become such in the short term. The map can facilitate the identification of appropriate partners for consortia building under the calls launched by the Soil Mission and others. If you are a soil-related living lab or lighthouse or plan to become one in the short term, we encourage your registration. So you'll find everything on the PREPSOIL website. Also, a taxonomy with the specific characteristics of soil health living labs and lighthouses is being developed, as well as guidance to develop business models. Last, this piece of PREPSOIL will provide a service package aimed at increasing performance and accelerate maturity of soil health living labs. So stay tuned and subscribe to the newsletter. Moving to the next slide. So a survey of the non-living labs showcased that access to funding is a problem for 85% of them, being the public sector the main source with 42%, the European Commission coming next with 19%, whereas universities account for 14%, and last, private organizations contributing with 11%. If direct access to funding is key to the long-term sustainability of soil health living labs and lighthouses, there are other elements crucial in this regard and inherent to living labs, like the identification of value creation, impact maximization, or multi-stakeholders governance models. This webinar is intended to contribute with ideas from current research, services in place, and hands-on experiences. So we have a packed agenda for today with 3 presentations and a workshop at the very end. I'll introduce the speakers and their sessions progressively. So coming next, our first speaker will present economic instruments to improve soil health. So he's including recommendations for living labs. He's Diego Soto. Diego is the Invest Soil Project Coordinator, another preparatory action of the Soil Mission. So Invest Soil aims at developing economic valuation system integrated into business models. So without further delay, I'll pass the word to Diego, and thank you very much. Diego, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Alberto. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks, Alberto. Thanks, the organizer, for allowing me to give this presentation here. I'm going to share my presentation. As Alberto said, I am Diego Soto from the University of Vigo, and I am the project coordinator of the Invest Soil project. My background is in soil physics, but I am going to present this session, make this presentation because the persons in charge are really busy these days, but they provide me very helpful advice when making this presentation. This speech is economic instruments to improve soil health strategy for living labs and lighthouses. I'm going to focus a bit in the Invest Soil project because it is what I know. So most of the instruments are kind of focus in the living labs and lighthouses that we have in the InvestSoil. So before starting, I'm going to give you some hints, some information about the project. The InvestSoil, it's an Horizon Europe project that started in January 2023. And the idea behind this, the InvestSoil, is to translate the ecosystem services provided by a healthy soil, as well as the interventions that we make to restore degraded soils into monetary values. And in this way, it is easy for us to integrate the value of the soil into the designing of the business models and incentives, and creating new incentives. We will follow in the InvestSoil this figure, this scheme that you have in the right. We are going to start by measuring measuring the soil health indicators in our case studies. Then we will make an economic valuation of the different ecosystem services. And on the one hand, we will try to upscale the existing businesses that exist around our case studies. And on the other hand, we will try to create new business models that use this monetary value. And in the end, the idea is to try to translate, to use all this information to create new incentives for improving the soil health, and also to include the soil health in the policy development process. I mean, you can see that the stakeholder communities are surrounding our scheme, because this is a very crucial point for the project. We created the stakeholder communities in each case study from the beginning, and we are asking them a lot of information. Starting from the selection of the indicators, this was done through the stakeholder communities, to the selection of incentives or the policy recommendations that they want for their case studies. The InvestSoil was created. This is figure. We will follow the figure in each of these case studies that we have in InvestSoil. We have like 2 living labs and 7 lighthouses, and it's important to consider that these are living labs following the ENOL consideration. Some of them are also, well, one of them is certified by ENOL, but these were not funded on specific goals for living labs, for soil mission living labs. So we cannot consider our living lab soil mission ones. The idea, as you can imagine, is that these living labs not finish after finishing the project. So we need to establish some tools, some mechanisms that allow them to be self-sustainable. And we are thinking about the actual business models and new ones. Shaya, a partner of the InvestSoil, will present this part, the part related with business model, in a session today. But I am going to speak about the incentives, because we have like a work package that is dedicated to the creation of new incentives and to the development of new investment in soil health. Actually, this presentation was made focusing on the first task of this work package, because it's the one that we finished, and we created a deliverable considering the information gathered in this task. The idea is to start this work package with the mapping of the policies and the economic incentives that works for improving the soil health. So we started by making this incentive and policy review protocol. Then we made a literature review, and in the end, we selected some stakeholders from the different case studies to perform some interviews and evaluate the selected incentives that we mapped in the first steps of this task. This, as I told you, this is a deliverable, policy conditions and catalogs of existing soil health, economic and policy incentives. This deliverable, it's public, so if you want it, I can share it with you. Actually, I already shared it with people from PREPSOIL, but it is public. I don't mind if you want to have access to the deliverable. This report has like three main different sections, starting with the mapping of policy and regulatory instruments, then the mapping of financial and economic instruments, and in the end, this ex post performance assessment of the selected instruments, which is where we interview different stakeholders to know their perspective. These are like the main parts that I'm going to present, especially focusing in the financial and economic instruments. Regarding the review protocol, we started with a broad research, with a broad search about, and we located around 5,000 papers, chapters, and books related with the topic. But after a filtering procedure, at the end we decided to focus in just 92 papers, and we located around 79 financial and economic schemes that works in improving the soil health. And as you can see, there is this trend of the last 30 years of increasing interest in creating new financial and economic schemes, but we cannot see a clear trend among the different regions, different continents. In order to establish categories for these financial and economic schemes, we can select, for example, the type of land use, the pressure. But in this deliverable, we decided to use the categories based on the instrument. So we can define like 5 different categories: price-based instruments, quantity-based instruments, investment and disinvestment, the schemes related with the insurance, with the risk management, and also some regulatory instruments. Among these categories, you can see some overlappings, but this categorization help us to define a bit better the different schemes that we can use to improve the soil health and to give this long-term sustainability to our living labs and lighthouses. Regarding the price-based instruments, these are like financial instruments, financial tools that basically put a price on environmental service. And the idea is to provide these funds, this money, without expecting any profit. And for example, we have the subsidies, which are direct financial support from the government or other entities. We have like payments for ecosystem services, which is when you compensate the farmer for maintaining or improving some ecosystem services, soil ecosystem services like the water conservation or the prevention of erosion, maintain an area with a forest without the timber extraction, for example. And then, of course, there are price-based instruments related with agriculture, like these programs that are related with the transition from a conventional agricultural model to another that is organic or agroecological. Some incentives related with the restoration and preservation of the soil, like not just improving the soil health but also monitoring the soil health and make sure that you are not destroying or degrading the soil after you improve the soil health. And also, you have also payments for avoid the deforestation. And some examples of this, we have one, for example, in USA, with this National Natural Resources Conservation Service, which basically provides financial support to different landowners to adopt conservation practices, or these payments for ecosystem services in Brazil or in Mexico that compensate the farmers for maintaining the forest instead of using some grazing management, or instead extracting timber from these forests. Then we have the quantity-based instrument. In this case, you create a market for a specific environmental resort resource or the emission of a pollutant. I think we most of us know about the carbon credits, but in this case I decided to use another example that is not so known. In an area of Brazil, they are trying to establish a market for the use of water. So basically, the government is distributing some permits to the water users, such as farmers, and allowing them to use certain amount of water. If the farmer doesn't use all the water, they can sell, or he or she can sell his surplus, permitting another farmer to use more water, and at the same time like diversifying the incomes that this first farmer is receiving. Regarding the investments and disinvestments, this idea basically it's also a financial tool, but in this case the organization or the government that provides the funds, it's expecting to generate an income. And for example, there are different types of instruments based on the debt. Like the funds are provided by a bank or a financial intermediary, but these funds there must be repaid with interest. For example, the agricultural credits that they have in Punjab, with the idea in mind of the farmers, facilitate the farmers' access to these credits to try to encourage them to adopt environmental friendly farming techniques and increase their wheat yields. And the other type of instruments can be based on the capital. This is when a company or an individual or an investment group decides to buy a part of a farm or an initiative that is restoring the soil health, and maybe in the future sell the shares that they bought at a higher price. So you have this initiative which is called Nature Best, that basically it's dedicated to this task of buying some forest or some initiatives and trying to at some point restore the soil health or preserve this forest, with the idea of generate benefits by selling them in the future. Then there are the insurance-related instruments. I find that are very interesting, and during our research, we just found like maybe 7 or 8 examples of these insurance-related mechanisms. But actually, farmers, when you speak with farmers and you interview them, one of the first things that they mention is the risk, for example, to transition towards the organic management. They have this fear that during the first 2, 3, 4 years, their yield will be lower. So this is an interesting tool to deal with that, because it works like a typical insurance. The farmer or the landowner purchase an insurance that covers certain risk. For example, the risk associated to extreme climate event, or to the transition to a different management that they have, and a management that can be more sustainable and can improve the soil health. And then if something happens, there is this loss assessment, and the farmers directly report losses to the insurance company. The insurance company assesses the damage and determines the compensation. There are some examples of this. For example, in Malawi, specifically for farmers, they have this type of insurance for sustainable agricultural practices that cover the risk associated with the inflation transition. So this is a way to encourage the farmers to adopt sustainable practices and reducing the financial risk. And then there are the regulatory instruments. These are the instruments that involve a regulatory reform, such as a change in the law, in the policies, in the regulations, etc. So you can, for example, you can apply different taxes depending on the sustainability of the practices that you are applying. And examples of this, we have the China's slope land compensation programs. The main objective is to encourage the farmers to renew croplands and avoid cultivating in sloping agricultural lands, because they are really sensitive to the degradation through erosion. So the idea is to pay them for avoiding cultivate these areas and maybe allow these areas that are that have a steep slope, like rewild or recover the natural vegetation in order to avoid continuing the continuous loss of soil. And there is another program in Ethiopia, which is called Food for Work, which basically the idea here is create a community around degraded areas and pay the people for their work, for applying their sustainable managements, but paying without money, but instead of money, offering them food in order to contribute with this with the restoration of these degraded lands. So this can be a secondary source of incomes for the people that lives in these areas. And then once we made this bibliographic research, what we did was to interview different stakeholders for the different living labs and lighthouses of the project. We selected 15 stakeholders with different background, and through interviews of about an hour, we gathered different perspectives regarding the soil pressures and degradation that they face in their countries, the policies and financial mechanisms they know in order that works in protection, rehabilitation and restoration of the soil health. Also, we asked them to define some barriers and challenges that the decision makers need to consider when thinking about policies and financial mechanisms. And also, we asked them about the trade-offs and synergies that they can anticipate when implementing this kind of policies and economic instruments. And for example, most of the stakeholders interviewed are worried, are concerned about the erosion, the pollution, the use of heavy machinery, and the lack of organic matter. And they provided the examples. For example, in Italy, there is this huge erosion caused by the heavy rainfall in Sardinia, or the problems that we have in Spain with the pollution due to excessive animal manure or herbicide use, or this picture that you have in here at the bottom right, which is from our lighthouse in Vilnius, which is a flood caused by the poor soil structure in an urban area. Regarding the benefits and opportunities, most of them knows about the common agricultural policy and eco schemes. Is the main instrument they mentioned, because they can receive direct grants, direct subsidies through these policies if they change to a more sustainable land use. But we also receive information about specific programs like this one in Sardinia, in Italy, that basically have a point that is dedicated to the restoration of soil health, considering, for example, the biodiversity. And most of them told us about the carbon credits, because they see this as a good opportunity for diversify their incomes. And regarding the benefits and opportunities, of course, the first thing they mention is the financial and income support, but they also mention the reduction of the erosion, which is one of the main concerns that they have, the access to carbon credits. They are really interested in this type of incentives, and also they mention the biodiversity and conservation benefits, and also the resilience and climate change adaptation. And this last point, I think it's one of the most interesting, because I belong to a family of farmers, and sometimes it is hard to change something, because this has been working for a lot of years. And when you speak with the farmers, they have this in mind that if it's not broken, they don't need to fix it. But sometimes now with this climate change scenario, they know that something is happening. They have more frequent extreme events. So I think this is a good point. Speak with them and try to incentivize the changes or the adaptation, the managements to adapt the crops or the land uses for the climate change. Regarding the barriers and challenges they mentioned, actually one of the most common barrier they mention is this interest of pressure groups and large agricultural corporations. They say that they have a lot of power, and sometimes the interest of this group do not align with the ideas behind soil conservation. They also mentioned the lack of clarity in incentive schemes. This is specifically related with the carbon credits, carbon market, because some of them want to join these initiatives, want to start increasing the storage of carbon in their soils, but they don't know how to do it. They don't know what kind of monitoring system they should use, or what kind of incentive scheme they should follow in their area. Some of them speak about the lack of knowledge, which is related with the previous point. And also they need some kind of way to harmonize data and definition, because sometimes, considering different countries, you can find different definitions for the soil health related issues. Some farmers also have problems to access the credit, so this is a good point for starting incentives with improving this credit access. And in some countries, they mentioned, for example, the lack of active farmers, the lack of coherence between the compensatory measures and the sustainable agricultural practices, the high cost for soil analysis, so this is related with the monitoring, and also the lack of communication between different sectors. That's why I think it's interesting, this perspective of the Living Lab, because you have people from the academia, from the government, from the companies, and from the civil society working together. And finally, I want to mention, this is the last, this is one of the milestones of the project. This is something that we are doing right now. And this deliverable that I just presented is like the first step. Now we need to analyze the different living labs and lighthouses that we have in the project, and select or determine which are the most appropriate financial and economic schemes for each of them, and try to develop an incentive toolbox that take into account these very specific conditions of each region. And most of the stakeholders interviewed selected, for example, the payments for ecosystem services as one of the most promising incentives ways for their case study. And finally, some recommendations for the creation of living labs and lighthouses. Regarding the definitions related with the soil health, we have like a lot of definitions at international and national levels. And also there are many instruments that have like direct and indirect impact in the soil health. So the idea that we have to keep in mind when deciding the type of incentives that we need to create or select for a living lab or a lighthouse is to work locally, and always selecting different incentives, not to focus in one. Maybe we need to select some regulatory instruments, some payments for ecosystems, always considering the local conditions. Then also there is this lack of protection of new soil, because most of the policies and incentives are focusing on restoring polluted soils, but we need to start thinking about the soils that are already healthy. How can we intervene to keep them healthy? Then also the political economic instruments are very focused in the agriculture and in the forest preservation. We need to think also some schemes for other land use, for example, the industrial and urban living labs. In urban, I don't know, maybe we can create some incentives for those municipalities or those villages that include green areas in their urban planning, for example. And also, there is like a lack of public expenditure on the soil health measurements, on monitoring the soil health. So it would be interesting to create also some incentives related with the monitoring. And of course, we have the social responsibility. We need to, for example, to teach the landowners and the farmers about the importance of the long-term health of the soil. And also, governments should conduct like regular physical, chemical, and ecological soil analysis and involve the society in supporting sustainable practices. And also we need to create some incentives related with the certification, with the labeling for the consumers to know better the type of products that they are buying. So if we can create, for example, a labeling system that supports the farmers that adopt the sustainable methods. And that's all from my side. Thank you for your attention. And if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them right now, or you can contact me through these two mails. Actually, both of them are working. So thank you.
Thank you, Diego, very much for this comprehensive overview. So you finished
A bit
on the
late.
spot. No, you're not. So, okay, do you have any questions? You could voice them or write in the chat. Natalia, we hear you, but very low. No. No. So maybe you can post your question in the chat. Yeah.
So just to mention that this deliverable, the complete one, have like more examples of incentives that you can use and will be available through Zenodo or through the webpage of the project for those who want it. But if you want, I don't know exactly the date when this deliverable will be ready, but if you want it right now, you just write me and I can share it with you. Because this is not the last version. We have our first reporting period during July, August, and after this, we can provide like the last version of the deliverable, the accepted one.
Very nice. Here it is. So, Diego, could you give an example of a good practice of using carbon credits?
I mean, I'm not a big fan of carbon credits because it's very easy to use them in a bad way. Because sometimes with carbon credits, what you do is just to translate the problem to another partner that has more money. So, for example, we have a good example in PREPSOIL, the living lab that we have in Fibel in Basel. It's certified by Enol, and basically they created this voluntary carbon market strategy, and the idea is this organization is having like different meetings, regular meetings with the farmers to give them advice about techniques that they can use for storage carbon in the soil. And if they follow these strategies, they receive an amount of money. So I think this is like a good strategy. Not really focus on like big companies or big companies, for example, that are buying carbon credits for increase or overpass their limit of emissions. So if we work at a local scale directly with the farmers, I think that can work. But if you work at a huge scale, at a global scale, you can have like the same problem, and the emissions will be like located or be concentrated in the companies that have more money and they can afford to pay them. So a good strategy also would be establish a good limit for the carbon credit emissions. So not too wide, too large, I mean.
Okay. Okay, so yeah, thank you, Diego, very much. If there is
Thanks.
not any other question, so I'll introduce the next speaker, Rosalina. Yeah, hello.
Hello, Alberto. Hello.
Hello,
Thank you.
Rosalina.
Thank you very much for the invitation and for having me today. It's really a pleasure to join your webinar today.
Very nice. Let me introduce you.
Yes.
So very briefly, so Rosalina Di Santo is Senior Project Manager at Meta Group. Meta Group is a Brussels-based company that addresses entrepreneurial needs of organizations working in regions developments. And Rosalina will present the Horizon Results Booster, so a service to maximize impacts beyond communication and exploitation. So Rosalina, the floor is yours.
Yes. Thank you very much, Alberto. And just to complement the information you just provided, of course, I am connecting from the Brussels office of Meta, but Meta Group is also based in Italy. And then we have other offices also in Poland and Slovenia. But of course, Horizon Results Booster is managed by a team that is split between Brussels and Italy. And of course, Meta Group is also, let's say, an expert in the exploitation strategy. But and that's why now I'm very glad to present you all the feature of the Horizon Results Booster, which is an initiative by European Commission, by DG RTD, that what next slide, please. Thank you very much. Which was actually conceived to, yes, Horizon Results Booster is an initiative by European Commission that was conceived to actually maximize the impact of research funded under FP7, Horizon 2020, and Horizon Europe. Therefore, European Commission indeed is thinking about supporting EU-funded projects in their activities of joint dissemination, exploitation, business planning, go-to-market. But I will show you in a while all the services that are part of this huge initiative. What it is important to know is that, of course, project can apply for services for Horizon Results Booster, and eligible projects can be both closed or ongoing. That's why we also work with FP7, but then also ongoing, closed and ongoing projects. So to give you a first overview, Horizon Results Booster has different services, and these services are delivered by experts. This service, it is important to know that all the services in Horizon Results Booster are free of charge, because this is an initiative by European Commission, and therefore eligible projects can benefit of these services completely free of charge. All the services can be chosen a la carte, meaning according to the needs of the project. So we have a different set of services. Every eligible project can select one, two, or even all the services, and every project can benefit of all the services, but only once. So meaning that it is possible for an eligible project to benefit of all the services that we have, but not apply a second time for and requesting the same service. Another thing important to know is that, of course, the services in Horizon Results Booster are delivered online, mainly online, and experts, they act as facilitators, meaning that they support and they guide the project towards methodologies and tools, but of course they do not replace the work that should be conducted by the project itself. So regarding the services in Horizon Results Booster, we have Service 1, which is dedicated to the portfolio dissemination and exploitation strategy. And it is a service which has 3 different modules. So it is composed by Module A and Module B for joint dissemination activities, and then Module C, which is the first service for exploitation activities that we have inside Horizon Results Booster. Then we have Service 2, which is the business plan development service. And then we have Service 3, which is actually a service dedicated to go-to-market activities. And this service, it is composed and structured by different options, but I will show you everything in a while. Now, starting from Service 1, Module A, next slide, please. Yeah, thank you very much. So starting from Service 1, Module A, what it is important to know is that in this is a service focused on the identification and creation of the portfolio of research and innovation project results. What does it mean? It means that a single project can apply for this service, and then a project group will be created. A project group can go from a minimum of 2 to a maximum of 10 projects. And it is important to know that actually it is possible to include in the project groups also project funded not at a EU level, so project funded at the regional or other kind of funding. In this service, the project group will, of course, the project applying for this service will receive guidance for the identification of similar ongoing projects. And indeed, then the project group, it is created, and for this project group will be mapped the relevant stakeholder and target audience for each portfolio of research results. This is a great opportunity, of course, for the project itself, also to identifying who is doing similar and complementary activities, and then, of course, join forces in order to then build up this project group and the portfolio of research results for joint dissemination. Next slide, please. The natural continuation of the Module A is the Module B. So Service 1, Module B is also a service working with project groups, either already created during the Module A, or if there is a cluster or a project which has already a sister project, it is possible to apply to this service as an already formed project group. In this service, actually, the project group will receive a support to design and execute a portfolio dissemination plan. What does it mean? It means that, of course, the expert guiding the project group in this service, they will deliver and help creating the visual identity, a short video, fact sheet, all the important dissemination tools that are relevant. And then it is possible also to benefit of a capacity building exercise in the Module B. Therefore, the project group can pick 2 out of the 6 dissemination expert packages that, of course, are, let's say, more useful for their activities. For instance, there is an event support or a social media presence package. So this can be, of course, selected and then discussed with the expert in charge of this module. Then we have the Service 1 Module C. So this is a service that works now with individual projects. Therefore, the logic of the project group and for the joint dissemination is only for the Service 1 Module A and Module B. While for Service 1 Module C, the single project can apply to this service, and this is dedicated to the forming and the improving of the exploitation strategy. First of all, it is important to know that a project benefiting of this service can analyze with the guidance of the expert a maximum of 3 key exploitable results. So in this service, it is included, first of all, a review of the key exploitable results of the project. Then, along with the expert, they can choose, of course, also to select which are the results that are mainly fit for this exercise. And then what it is included also in this service is an identification of all relevant stakeholders in the exploitation value chain. There is, of course, also a support to perform a risk analysis related to the exploitation of the results. It is important to know that, of course, at the end of each HRB service, there is a final report produced by the expert in which all the tools, methodologies, analysis, and information and recommendation also by the expert are gathered. And this final report will be made available to the beneficiaries of the services, therefore the project requesting the service, and also to European Commission. Then we have the Service 2, which is the business plan development. In this service, it is possible to analyze with the guidance of the expert only 1 key exploitable results, because of course here the analysis and tools and the methodologies, they go much more in depth comparing to the Service 1 Module C. And what it is included in the analysis of this service is, of course, a market analysis, a business strategy, an operation plan, a competitor identification and analysis, and a clear action plan to implement, let's say, a clear action plan of the time to market of the solution of the project. It is important to know that projects that want to benefit directly of the Service 2, they need to upload in the application form a draft business plan or an exploitation plan. And this is because, of course, the expert, of course, needs also to understand what was already done and worked during the project. And then let's say it's a guidance to have really solid business plan. In case a project doesn't have yet ready an exploitation plan or a draft business plan to upload to request this service, it is possible to start requesting from Service 1 Module C, therefore from the service before, and then continuing with the same expert in the analysis of the business plan development. Also, another important information is that nothing prevents the project to, of course, apply and use the tools and methodologies analyzed during the service to, of course, the other results of the project, because, of course, there is a limited number of results that can be analyzed with the expert, but, of course, is perfectly fine to just use the methodologies and apply those to the other results of the project requesting the services. Then we have the Service 3, which is a service dedicated to the go-to-market support. And in this sense, this service, it is structured in 6 different options. So it is possible for a single project or even for a project group to benefit of the pitching, support for intellectual property rights, innovation management training options, and only for a single project, there are the option of the business service, which is an option composed by other three, let's say, subsection, which includes a commercialization plan, business plan, evaluation of business plan potential, and creation of a startup. Then we have the exploitation option and access to non-EU funding. Of course, every eligible project can pick a maximum of 4 of these 6 options. So it's not possible to benefit of all the 6 options for the same project, but a maximum of 4 options is possible to choose for the go-to-market support service, according, of course, to the needs of the project. Also, in this sense, the guidance of the expert will be tailor-made according to the situation and to the specific characteristic of the project. And also, of course, at the end of each of the service, as I said before, there is a final report produced by the expert, and in which all the relevant information will be included. Yes, next slide, please. So here we have an overview of all the services that I just presented. So on the let's say left side, we have the dissemination services. So from service 1, module A and module B, which are the services dedicated to joint dissemination and therefore for project groups that either already formed or to be formed during the module A. And then on the right side, we have the exploitation services starting from service 1, module C, then service 2 and service 3. It is important to know that actually the dissemination services and the exploitation services can be requested and run in parallel, because of course during the application and the request for the services, the project can choose the time when these services should start. And it is possible to choose, of course, to start at the same time a dissemination service, for instance, the service 1 module A, at the same time with the service 1 module C, which is the first exploitation service. Next slide, please. Then, so how does it work? First of all, of course, we have a website where it is possible to submit the application. And in this application, of course, it is important to mention the grant agreement number of the project, the name and contact of the coordinator, and also the project officer contact and email. It is important to know that it could be a contact person in the project submitting the application, or the coordinator itself submitting the application. That is not, I mean, both are fine, but also it is important to know that every request submitted is on behalf of the project, of course. Therefore, the request for services will be registered under the project name and grant agreement number, and of course then it's not possible to request a second time already a service that was delivered. It is important to know also that this initiative that we currently have will, let's say, it is foreseen to come to an end at the beginning of November, because this is a 4-year initiative that started in 2020 and will be running until the beginning of November. But this is not a problem, because of course the follow-up initiative, and therefore let's call it the HRB2, so the second part of the Horizon Results Booster, it is already conceived and it will be implemented right after, in order to assure the continuity. So it is possible, for instance, to request and apply for services now under the current HRB, but if as a matter of timing, or as a matter also of project requesting services after the summer, then we can foresee to, of course, switch to the Horizon Results Booster second part. At the moment, in Horizon Results Booster, we have more than 230 experts delivering services all over Europe. Of course, as I mentioned, these services are delivered online. We are supporting at the moment more than 1,610 projects, and at the level of assignments, meaning service requested, we are at the level of over 2,130. So it is really, what it is important to know is that this initiative is really multidisciplinary and comprehensive, and of course is supporting a large variety of projects. In the next slide, indeed, we can see that at the level of funding scheme, we have different yes, thank you very much. We have, sorry, no, there is, yes, here we are. We are a different funding scheme that have been and are supported by Horizon Results Booster, but of course we have the majority of projects coming from Research and Innovation Action that requested services, but of course we have also Marie Curie, CSA, Innovation Action, really from whatever kind of funding scheme. What it is important to know is that, of course, we witnessed that a lot of projects, they found very useful to have this kind of support, because of course, first of all, it's free of charge, and second of all, it's very valuable because not everyone is an expert in building up an exploitation strategy or a business planning, and therefore this is exactly why this initiative was conceived. So I will conclude the presentation here. I think there is something in the chat. I'm not sure if it's a question related to the presentation.
Yeah, so thank you very much, Roselina.
It's a pleasure.
It's very interesting to learn about this service, no? And here is a question. So could, for example, a municipality with a soil project idea approach you, and would they be eligible for your services, or is it just for EU projects?
Yeah, so the thing is that eligible projects that can submit an application are EU-funded projects, but if there are other kind of project that can be inserted in the project group, and therefore, let's say there is an EU-funded project requesting the service for joint dissemination, then in that sense, also other kind of project can be included in the project group. This is the only way in which non-EU funded project can participate, but only for the purposes of joint dissemination activities. For the rest, all the other services, of course, are eligible and available for EU funded project, and as I mentioned, therefore FP7, Horizon 2020, or Horizon Europe.
Very nice. So Corina, you are in the room. I believe I saw you connected.
Yes, I am.
Okay, so hello, Corina. Good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Should I
Thank-
share my screen
Thank
or?
you for joining us. You can share your screen, or we can do it for you as you wish.
Okay, let me try.
Okay. In the meantime, I'm going to introduce you, yeah?
Okay.
So our next speaker is Corina Varga. She's head of Agriculture Policy Research Group at the Research Institute of Organic Agriculture, OMKI. So OMKI is a matured and well-established living lab based in Hungary and member of ENOL. And Corina will introduce her living lab and showcase their business model, the aspects that contributed to its sustainability, as well as the challenges faced and future perspectives. So without further hesitation, Corina, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Alberto. I hope that you can see my screen. I mean, like
Yes.
full screen. Okay.
Not in full mode, but
No?
not in full mode, but we see the screen, the PPT.
Mm-hmm. I don't know why.
But we can see it perfectly, yeah? Not in full mode, so I wouldn't.
You sure? Is it
Yeah,
fine?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay, great. Then I continue then. Thanks again. Thank you so much for the introduction and also for inviting me to give this presentation. It's a pleasure. So after the introduction, I would just essentially like to start. So my presentation will be an overview, essentially about UMKI On-Farm Living Labs financial sustainability. But before I get into that, I just really like to talk a little about UMKI On-Farm Living Lab in a nutshell. And for clarity's sake, I would like to start by emphasizing that UMKI On-Farm Living Lab is not a living lab that only specializes in soil health research and innovation, but it's an organic and agroecology focused living lab. So we work in various production fields, not only just soil health research and also many aspects of organic farming. So we do this by operating a nationwide participatory experimentation network that involves a variety of field trials and technology tests co-designed and co-implemented with the farmers, but also other stakeholders of the value chain, depending on the topic and depending on the objective. With the aim to improve and or develop new organic practices or products or different technologies. And how you can imagine us is that we operate, or at least we like to call ourselves an ecosystem. So this means that essentially many living lab projects are run simultaneously with different maturities that are categorized within 4 main themes or thematic areas. That is our arable cropping research, horticulture research, animal husbandry research, and socioeconomics research. And I will not get into that. I just like to highlight our soil health related research in relation to arable farming and also horticulture. Our flagship project for soil health is regenerative organic soil cultivation method. So we experiment with regenerative practices under organic farming conditions. We also test no-till practices in horticulture, and we look at the impact and the effects of diverse cover crops in vineyard interrows, and the relevance to soil health and also soil biodiversity, and how it is connected to production and also to landscape. How we do this? So we have a complex methodology, but the core of our method is the so-called on-farm method. It's a 5-step process, and we do this in our soil living labs as well. This is a standard method that we apply overall at UMKI On-Farm Living Lab. So we first...
Corina, 1 sec, because the slides are not changing.
Oh.
So we are still in the first slide.
Really?
Yes, but don't worry.
Maybe I can go ahead and share the screen for you, Corina.
Okay, that's also fine. That's also perfect.
Let's try again. Okay. Just a sec. Okay. Would you be able to see my screen and in full mode?
Yes.
Nice. So tell me when to stop.
Yeah, please go on. Yeah, this one. Yeah, also I mentioned this, and now I'm here.
Okay, great.
Great. Thanks so much. Sorry for this little intermezzo, everyone. So continuing with the on-farm methodology. So that we apply in a standard way at UMKI. So this is true for our soil health research as well. So first we sit down together with the farmers and relevant stakeholders. These are mainly advisors or external research institutions or breeders, for instance, but always dependent on the topic, and discuss the problem. And based on that, we define the research question, usually during workshops or series of workshops. And then we set up very simple experiments at the commercial farms of the organic farmers, which fit into their everyday farming practices. Then we capture and analyze and evaluate the data together. We have these yearly evaluatory rounds and events. Usually we also have those in form of workshops when we discuss the results and also discuss options for improvement and ideas for improvement based on the results, or things that we should abandon. And essentially after that, we publish and also communicate widely to the wider agricultural community the results. And next slide, please. And I mentioned in the beginning that it's a complex process because the on-farm method is essentially embedded into our wider product and service development process. I really don't want to take time with this. As you can see, the on-farm method is embedded into the testing and analysis stages of the product and development. And based on the results, on the on-farm results, we start the product design, and then we also pilot the different products and services. And based on the results, we decide whether it should be marketed or not. There are many differences between the two processes, but one I would just like to highlight is the difference between the stakeholders. So in our on-farm research, on-farm research is traditionally a cooperation between farmers and researchers. And these are the main stakeholders that we involve here, but we are always flexible if the topic allows us. As I mentioned, we involve also advisors, other researchers, or breeders. And in the product and service development process, we open this process to other stakeholders as well. So a wide range of stakeholders we mobilize here, from consumers to SMEs or authorities. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is just a geographical representation of our farms and on-farm research broken down to the different Living Lab projects that we have. Next slide, please. And yeah, some Living Lab achievements I wanted to mention before I turn towards financial sustainability. So the Living Lab approach and methodology really allowed us to develop very robust and accepted products and services that are all available on the market right now, except for our organic land-raised flour, which we are still piloting. So, for example, our land-raised tomato seedling package, through which we managed to reintroduce land-raised tomatoes as seedlings into organic production. And also we created a whole value chain based on that. And these land-raised tomato seedlings can be bought every year seasonally at one of the biggest supermarket chains in Hungary. Or, for example, the UMKI Living Interrow, which I highlighted here because this is the one that is more connected to soil, to our soil-related research. So this is a species-rich seed mixture that we specifically developed for vineyard interrows, and currently we are improving, and this is also available on the market since 2018, and both conventional and organic farmers are using it. And we also developed an advisory service for organic farmers. Next slide, please. Yeah, just some pictures about our various activities. We can move on to the financial part. Yes, so I wanted to start this part by mentioning that UMP Farm Living Lab is not, so it has no legal entity. The host organization is the Hungarian Research Institute of Organic Agriculture, and it has a legal form, which is a non-profit limited liability company. So we are still an SME. We are growing, so maybe after 2 years we will not be an SME, but we'll see. And I wanted to mention this because this legal form determines the frameworks within which we can operate financially. So as you can see, the majority of our activities are constrained toward non-profit activities. Therefore, there are also certain restrictions regarding the type of income that may be gained or that we can gain with our activities. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to show you the evolution so far of the UMP Farm Living Lab and also our financial situation. So UMP was established in 2011, and back then it was 100% financed by a foundation, Swiss foundation called Pensivis Foundation. And in 2012, we launched the On-Farm Network that is essentially the beating heart of our activity. And back then, we only covered 3 main production fields. So we had research in herbal farming, horticulture, and apiculture. And during these 6 years, essentially everything was financed by this foundation. And another milestone was, this was probably the biggest milestone, a determining milestone, 2017, when we developed an exit strategy from Pensivis. So we decided to be financially independent. And in order to achieve that, we started to diversify our income sources. And this was the time when we also entered into EU-funded projects, and we explored also national possibilities as well. And we slowly started to increase, I mean, not we, the Pensivis Foundation slowly started to decrease the percentage of the funding, of their funding. And this was the time when we also started to focus and shift our perspective towards product and service development as well. So essentially this was our exit strategy. And in 2019, this was also a big milestone because we managed to get a significant amount of national support, national fund, to continue our participatory research work with the On-Farm network from the Ministry of Agriculture, the Hungarian Ministry of Agriculture. And this allowed us to expand on our activities. So from this time onwards, we deal with soil health research within arable farming and horticulture. And we also discontinued our apiculture research and started to do animal husbandry related research, and also organic advisory and policy related research. I highlighted here our entry into ENOL as well. So in 2020, we received our Living Lab certification. And also this was the time when our EU project participation and involvement really increased. Thanks to ENOL, but also thanks to other networks international networks that we joined. And last year, 2023, we received another round of significant national support, national funds to support our own farm network. And essentially, the increase in EU project participation did not stop at all. It's really peaking. We see how it will go on in the future, and we also managed to a little bit expand on our activities. So we started to so we also established our agri-economics research activities as well. The next slide, please. So here I just put our current income model for you to see. So probably you also noticed mentioning the national funds and the EU project that, yeah, these are the major income sources that we have at Ömki On-Farm Living Lab. The biggest one is the national funds, so supported by the Hungarian Ministry of Agriculture through the Hungarian National Rural Network. And the second one, RDU project, is the RDU project. So currently we have 20 projects running. And there is a small part, or rather an incremental part or income source, are the profits from our products and services. Next slide, please. So I collected here a couple of aspects that contributed to our sustainability. First of all, I think the major thing was, or rather the change in our perspective, so how we look at research, and we rethought that what impact we should like to achieve with our research results. So we really shifted towards product and service development, and this is something which we do not apply in a standard way to all of our Living Lab projects, but this is the future, so this is what we really want to do. But so far, we only managed to do this with a couple of successful Living Lab projects. And the main idea here is not only to develop the products, but actually to also bring together all the stakeholders from the value chain, so we can actually establish product chains together with the interested stakeholders. Another thing is increasing visibility at international level. We really consciously did this, and still we are still doing this. So we started to join international networks, as I mentioned, from 2017, for example, to ENOL or to the Pesticide Free Alliance. And we also started to build our own networks, for example, in the BioEast initiative, which is a macro-regional collaboration, or for example, in the agroecology partnership. So this all helped us to ensure our involvement in EU projects, and also to be part of a very lively international community and keep us up to date on the research trends. And another aspect I would like to highlight is the national level. So we really worked a lot through our policy advocacy work to build strategic partnerships that we currently still have with the Hungarian Ministry of Agriculture, so we could secure also national funds for our own farm network. And I highlighted here a general aspect, adaptability, which I'm pretty sure that you are all aware, and it might be a small thing, but actually it's a big thing. So we were also very conscious about positioning ourselves and aligning ourselves and our activities to the current trends that we have at the, for example, at the EU level. Next slide, please. I think challenges, yeah, we have tons of challenges. I just listed here a couple. So the product and service development is extremely difficult for us. One inhibiting issue here, or inhibiting aspect here, is our legal form, that we are a non-profit organization, but that's fine. But probably the bigger thing is that we have very limited cooperation opportunities with the downstream part of the agri-food system, so essentially wholesalers and supermarkets. This is very, very difficult to sit down, actually, even to schedule dates with them. Even that part is very difficult to reach them and to find the time to sit down and for them to understand our perspective and also the upstream part of the agri-food system. But I'm pretty sure all of you who work with different stakeholders from the agri-food system, this is not news. So this could really slow down, and it slows down and inhibits our product and service development. We have a constant struggle of finding and keeping appropriate farmers. I also think this is not news for those who operate farmer networks. Also difficulty in finding qualified and organic or agroecology focused staff. So now we are more and more in the situation that we have a lot of EU projects. We are awarded a lot of EU projects, but we just can't do the work properly because it's, I mean, the job market is not really favorable, at least towards us. So it's very difficult to find qualified personnel. Also, we have, I believe, lacking, so we are lacking, at least in Hungary, a system approach on organics, but on soil health at the policy level, which affects national funds. And also how they, and also product and service development as well. I mean, on a theoretical level, I think the system approach is there, but I'm talking about the implementation side. And also, I don't know how it is ongoing or how it's going in other countries, but we are still in an economic recession, essentially. So there is that constant fear that funds may be cut, originally allocated to sustainability-focused projects also. The next slide, please. Right, future perspectives, and I only highlighted here the soil-related issues that we plan to do in the coming years. First of all, we would like to continue to participate in EU and nationally funded projects as well. So we expect that our income sources, or at least the proportion of the income sources of our income sources, will not really change. So EU funds and national funds will cover the majority of our income sources, but we would really like to put emphasis on new product and service developments, and this is especially true for our soil living lab projects, but we generally would like to strengthen these type of projects that we have. So for instance, we will develop a technological guidance for farmers on regenerative organic practices, and we would really like to increase and disseminate this knowledge through our advisory service. So hopefully this will be an element in our that will be incorporated into our advisory service as well. And another big thing that we are planning and currently developing is that we want to establish a national regenerative organic private standard, which would potentially be a new income source for us, but still under development. And of course, we want to continue to improve our inter-row seed mixtures. So what we have in mind is to have different seed mixtures adapted to different soil conditions, vineyard soil conditions, and also, of course, considering climate change as well. And yeah, essentially, this was it. I hope I'm still in time. Yeah, thank you so much for your attention, and thanks for sharing the slides.
Thank you very much, Corina. Very comprehensive overview of the sustainability, no, of the living lab over time, and thanks also for posing the challenges, no, and to open up this a bit for us. Okay, so is there any question on behalf of participants? Tove?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah,
I'm
perfectly.
Tove from Norway. We are working with developing a living lab, and I'm as a research institute, and I'm really interested to hear what your sort of your story about the living lab. And I wondered about the sites. When you do experimentation, do you try to have the same experiments at all the sites, or how do you manage the experimentation
Yeah.
on the farms and
Yeah.
still sort of do it as a part of the farmer's everyday life?
Yeah, that is always the aim, to do the same experiments on the sites that we have, but we always consider the equipment and the different terms that are available on the farms, and it happens that we might have to abandon some experiments that we planned, and we do them on other sites then.
But it is always managed by the farmers themselves, or do you have advisors sometimes to manage the experiments?
No, it's I mean, together with the researcher.
Yeah, but do you think it's an advantage that the farmers are managing the experiments themselves, and that it's not an advisor who comes out and sort of works with the fields?
No, I mean, we didn't really experience that, no.
Okay, yeah, well, that's interesting to hear. Thank you.
Thanks.
I'm muted, sorry. Is there any other question? You can voice them or write in the chat.
If
Oh.
not, maybe I have other questions.
Yeah.
Oh, one other at least.
Take
When you do
advantage.
these workshops, so did I understand it right? So you have one workshop after the growing season, but you also have something at the beginning to plan the experiments. Is
Yeah.
that correct?
Exactly. There is always one workshop at the very beginning when the Living Lab project starts. And afterwards, we have in every year evaluatory workshops together with the farmers and the stakeholders until the end of the Living Lab project. Of course, we never really consider this the end, because almost all the time we improve this further. And these are just different, I don't know, cycles or different rounds. But yeah, so we have one in the beginning and every year evaluatory workshops. I mean, at least in soil, probably this is what you are more interested, so I will not talk about other living labs, but in other living labs we might have more, because the farmers might request it, or other stakeholders might request it. So yeah, but we do other piloting informal workshops as well. For example, we did tastings, tasting experimentations with consumers in restaurants. That was also in form of a workshop. So we, in an ad hoc way, we always include some other methods that involve and engage.
So the method differ a little bit depending on what project that you are currently working with. I see.
Corina, there's a question for you in the chat. So how do you manage participant dropouts? For example, farmer dropouts. Do you have a process for this? And if so, has this changed over time?
Yeah, it's a continuous issue. So what you need to know is that our farmers in the on-farm network, they do this voluntarily. I mean, for 2 of our Living Lab projects, now we started to test that we provide some payments for the farmers for some compensation. We will see whether we apply this at the whole Living Lab level or not. But I wanted to state this because since they do this voluntarily, we write a collaboration contract with them. We really can't do anything. We just accept it when we have a dropout. And what we try to do is to, and so far we experienced that it might a little bit elongate the involvement in our living lab, especially in soil living labs, is that we try to work with younger farmers. It's way easier to work with younger farmers from many perspectives, and we experience less dropouts in these cases. But how we try to address this is essentially that first of all, the lead researcher is gathering the farmers from his or her own network. So therefore, the work is based on trust and based on previous experiences. So therefore, the dropout can be avoided because they know one another. So they know what they can expect from one another. And the other thing is how we try to address it is that we, with the contract. So we try to lay down everything in a written form and always explain everything in the beginning. And based on that, the first workshop is always very important in the beginning because we together establish the expectations, the needs of the farmers, and based on that, we write the contract. So this also helped us to decrease the dropout because we explain everything clearly, what they can expect, the risks, and they also voice their needs and expectations. And based on that, we create a kind of a benefit package. And yeah, since they don't get essentially paid, we can just trust in that contract that everyone respects what we at the very beginning co-created together, we discussed together, and work accordingly. And of course, continuous communication. I didn't mention this because I find this obvious. So the research project lead who leads these living lab projects, I mean, has to have this weekly communication with the farmers. So therefore they can communicate, I mean, in two ways that if something comes up or if there are problems, so he or she gets informed, at least from the side of the farmer or other stakeholders at first hand. So he or she can address the issues.
Okay, Filipa seems satisfied. Yeah, so someone raised Shaya. Yeah, please.
Yes, thank you very much for your presentation. Actually, it was very interesting topic about talking about these participants dropout. You said about mechanisms that you want to retain these participants, but what are exactly the main reasons that they leave out, they go out?
Many things. First of all, if there was no clear communication in the very beginning that what they can expect, and this is always depends on the research lead, then it can, I mean, it can fuel misunderstandings, and it can happen that the farmers' expectations are not met. In the very beginning, that when we started the On Farm network, we also experienced that, and now it's, I believe, clear for everyone, but in the beginning it was not really clear for us that the majority of the farmers, even organic farmers, tend to think in short term. And this is something that cannot be applied in the on-farm research and normally in agroecology research as well. So it also created some problems between the farmers and the researchers because we always think in long-term way, especially in research, and this didn't really match with the expectations of the farmers. They wanted to, we wanted to see results, see gains after 2 years, and which is not going to happen in this type of research. But afterwards, after many problems. We learned that we should, as I mentioned to Philippa, that we should do this in a way that we sat together with everybody at the very beginning, and we co-create everything together, and we explain everything very clearly. But it still happens today that something is not communicated clearly, and then later on the farmer drops out. So because of these things that I highlighted before. Yeah. It also happens that year after year, if the results are also not what everyone expects, then the farmer just simply deems the whole thing unsatisfactory and leaves. So that also happens.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Any other question?
I'm just going to make a comment if I'm allowed, and just so that, you know, the Corina is not put, you know, like on the spot. I asked the question in respect to participant dropout because participant dropout is a constant on every living lab. It happens. It always happens. It's a rule, you know. There's nothing you can do to stop it from happening. What you can do is minimize it, and that was the reason why I asked her, how are you mitigating it in your case? So just, you know, to make sure that they are not, you know, coming out of this presentation, you know, like seeming like they have a stain on their process. I really don't think so, and I was really happy with your answer. Thank you, Corina.
Thank you.
Okay, Corina. So thank you very much for your time and for addressing the questions, and keep in touch.
Thank you and welcome, and thanks so much for the very good questions.
Thank you. Okay, so our next speaker is Shaya. So Shaya Shori, she's a researcher at Wageningen University in the Netherlands, and also partner to the PREPSOIL project. So Shaya and her team have developed a research integrated protocol to design sustainable business models, and she proposes a workshop to get acquainted with them. So Shaya, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. First of all, hello everyone, good afternoon. I hope till now you enjoyed the whole session and gained lots of exchanges of knowledge. I want to say thank you to Alberto and also the organizers from PREPSOIL for their great effort for making this session happen, and also helping me about the digital environment that I'm not good at it. And I want to apologize in advance because I was for 2 days in the bed. So if I do have a very bad voice, please forgive me about that. So I would like to share my slides with you, but I don't know where. Or Michelle, can you please share slides?
Yes, sure.
Thank
Just
you.
give me a second.
Yeah, as Alberto introduced me, and until the slides come up, I am assistant professor at Wageningen, and together with our team, we are working at the project. Yes, I can have you all here. Yes, good. That we are working on work package 5 that is about new business model for soil health. This is a co-leading by Wageningen University and Exeter University, Dr. Valentino Materia and Professor Stefano Pascucci. Next slide, please. The aim of this work package is indeed to identify the business innovation pathways for more soil health friendly agricultural, forestry, urban and industrial systems. What we were thinking about is that, okay, if we have all the elements from different perspectives, for example, from life cycle assessment, from political let's say, policy aspect, financial aspect, indicators from the soil, how we can put all of them together that that people from one initiative can see it. Next slide, please. So the aim of this work package came through this group, extended group from Wageningen University and Exeter, together with our case that is EcoBedrijf Lingenhof in the Netherlands, that we started to develop new business models via the InvestSoil project. Next slide, please. As you see in this project, we are kind of located at the center, and it is, as I mentioned before, it kind of shows that how we are connecting other work packages and pieces together, and we need to have a way to organize all aspect and information for the let's say soil health, and how we can organize better for soil health. This is our, let's say, philosophy behind our work package that we have. So for that, we developed some objective. Next slide, please. That is the very first objective, was we need to have an integrated research methodology. If we have something, a roadmap for ourselves, then it will be easier to talk about, and it will be a common language for us, that what we are talking about. So we said that first thing is that to develop a common integrated research methodology and a protocol for designing sustainable business model as an objective, and we try to develop it as a portfolio of the sustainable business model. So this one was a deliverable for us that has been submitted in April 2024. And then after talking with Alberto, he showed interest for explaining and presenting it. And we tried to have a little bit of presentation and little bit of hands-on work. So next slide, please. Why we started with this methodology and this protocol was that we heard from the soil mission that European Commission is intended to establish 100 living labs, and they want to make the lead for transition towards sustainability. And everyone, of course, all of us, we try to look at it from our own perspective and see that how we can make it, as soil scientists from their own perspective, and let's say business and management scientists from their own perspective. So we said that, okay, how we can make it in a way that is more comprehensive and can be helpful for almost everyone. In that perspective, we try to dive deep into the literature of the sustainable business models. And what we found is that three main principles that you see here. The very first one is the multi-stakeholder engagement. And what does that mean is that if we want to make something soil healthy or make a sustainability go forward, we have to have the voice of different stakeholders. Otherwise, it will not work well, because the interest of them and how we impact them or they impact us is important. So we have to make into consideration, as I also saw in the previous example and presentation, that how they are working and try to communicate and make this engagement with their own stakeholders. The second principle for the sustainable business model that we found it important was about system thinking. Not only about their own, our own problem, our own challenge that we are thinking about, but we have to think more broad. We have to think about different actors, different events, how they are related to each other, and how this initiative, this work is integrated or work affect or get affected by others. So in a system thinking, We are not doing, it is like an ecosystem that if you change something in the one particle, let's say in the ecosystem, it will be a huge change at other parts. We try to have this philosophy also in our sustainable business model designing. And the last one was about the triple bottom line approach. This is kind of well famous and also well known through the literature that from the social and environmental and also economic perspective, we have to take a look at one initiative to see that whether it treats the nature well, whether it is a win-win relationship. Do we see the community, the local stakeholders, local actors around it, that how they are affected by, and also from the economic and financial aspect, do we have enough viability to continue with that? And for example, as you heard previously about the financial aspect and different methodologies on that. So these were three principles or philosophy behind a sustainable business model that we tried to integrate in the protocol that we designed. Next slide, please. So what we said that, okay, how we can get to the sustainable business model is that we need to have a way to go through it. And this way for us was a protocol that consists of 4 stages. As you see, we have initiating, learning, strategizing, and reflecting. Yes, if it is at the beginning of the work that there is no experience to work in a form of a living lab or lighthouse, maybe you have initiating, but maybe you are an established living lab and still you need to think more strategically about your work. Maybe you go from the reflecting stage and then you go toward the initiating a new work and new challenge or problem statement. This is the way that we are looking at it. And you see the arrows that it doesn't go only one way, but it is also connected to each other. So we try to give this flexibility to these stages in a way that people, groups of stakeholders, people or initiative, try to see that which part is more relevant and helpful for them to work with it. The first stage is initiating, that we say that what we want to do, what is exactly the problem statement that we have. And then we have some sub-stages that I will talk about that later on. And then we have a learning that is about making sense of what we say. If we say that, okay, the soil is polluted, what we exactly know about this pollution? What are the factors from the social, environmental, or even other businesses affecting it that make this soil pollution, for example? Or what can be the possible, let's say, solution or interventions for that we are talking about it? However, at this stage, we are learning, we are understanding, we are making sense of what is going on there. And in the strategizing part, we try to organize, we try to give everything, all the single, let's say, pieces of information that we had at the learning stage into the map, and try to make it from strategic tools that we found in the literature. We try to make it simple in a way to organize the information that we had from the learning stage. And this stage has 2 parts. One part is the strategic view that you will have triple layered business model. And the other stage is that how they are connected with each other, every partner who should do what. And maybe out of this also comes an action plan. And the last stage is the reflecting. After a while of acting and working, having milestones, we try to think and assess it, that are we in the right direction? Are we going well? What are the problems? How we can tackle it? So it is an iterative work that we are doing, and we try to always improve this, let's say, cycle that we have. Next slide, please. So the initiating part starts with 3 subsections: problem identification, group formation, and rule making. As also you heard from the previous example, that they had these group and they try to make some expectation management. And this is very important because it brings more transparency and therefore more trust among people and commitment to work together. So while we are defining that what is exactly the problem that we are going to work on, that we also try to see that who is involved in it and how we want to be with each other. Is there something like voting, all of us vote for some decision, or is there some representative that they would vote, or are these the combination, both of them? So in the protocol, we designed some guiding questions in a way to form the group and also how to rule among the group. This is, of course, cannot be so official, but it is something about the communication, about the human interaction. And as we put the expectation forward, we can see that whether we are able to manage, whether we are able to meet these expectations or not, which is very important. And we thought that for making the commitment in the whole cycle, it is important from the beginning to people talk with each other and understand and have some, let's say, rules together about these different aspects. And the output will be the problem statement, maybe some lines that what is exactly the essence that you are working and what is exactly your passion for to work on it. And then the stakeholder map, as you see in the example here, that, for example, we have in this example, some stakeholder from NGOs, some farmers, some from suppliers, and some from governments. That shows that, okay, who are the people that are connected into this problem statement and into this initiative. And the last one is the guideline. Okay, how we want to communicate with each other. If there is some difficulties, how we will manage it. Every frequency of the contact or occasion of the contact, how we want to do it. This is the way that they go. So this is one output that you will have. Next slide, please. The next stage, after clearing that who we are and why we are gathered together for this initiative, we try to learn about that problem. We try to understand that, okay, how exactly we see, why we think that it is a problem, from where did it come, if it has some roots in the society that is around there, the community around there, is there some cultural aspect that is connected to it, is there some environmental benefits that people try to have. Of course, it is not completely separated from each other, and sometimes they are integrated, but we, as a, let's say, we try to visualize, we try to put the words and, let's say, the ideas that are in the air on the paper, visualize them, having them in a way that is more understandable for the people to tackle with. And from this, or what are the possible interventions, what are the possible solutions that we can have? And from this stage, what we can have is the system maps. Maybe the word is a little bit sometimes heavy, because I received this also feedback that your term sometimes is difficult to understand for farmers. But what we want to say that what are the events or causes that making this problem, and what are the actors or events that can help to improve that problem. This is what we mean by system mapping, and it is just for make easy understanding the whole, let's say, reality. We put it on the paper with some, let's say, concepts and arrows with the positive or negative to make it simpler for understanding, for better understanding and making sense of it. So the output that we will have, it will be two system maps, one from the actors and the other one from the events and causes from this stage. Next slide, please. The next one is about strategizing. At this stage, when we understood that, okay, what is the issues, what are, let's say, the causes for that, how they are affected, if we do what, will happen what, for example, and I will show you some examples about those stages, we try to make a little bit more concrete that what we are looking for. And for that, we started to look for strategic tools that are in the management literature, and we found some possible beneficial tools we thought that can be helpful for the initiatives and these groups to work on it and try to put in a structure the way of working in that. So we use the triple layered business model and also the governance model to show that, okay, now what is exactly how we want to tackle, what purpose, what value we want to propose to tackle this issue, who are the customer, how they are related to each other. From the environmental perspective, what is exactly the environmental, let's say, materials that we are using? What are the end of use of those materials, if there is any? How, from the social aspect, how the communities around these, let's say, initiatives will benefit or get affected positively or negatively about that. So via this, we found it helpful, but we want to try it or examine it in practice and see that how far it can be also working or should be modified. Of course, it is not something that we say that 100% working for everyone, but how it works, it depends on the context as well, and we want to understand it more and more. So the output will be these triple layered business model canvas and the sustainable business model roadmap that will happen at this stage when people came together and through the workshop try to organize and shape their thoughts that they had from the previous stage. Next slide, please. And then we go to the last stage, that is, maybe it is the last stage, maybe it is the first stage for other initiatives, that is about assessment that, okay, how are we doing? And is it something in the right path? Should we change something? What happens through our model? Does it work or no, we have to change it? So we will have a progress report. I'm sorry. We will have a progress report that explains exactly that how we are working and the milestones, and if there should be any changes that goes to the initiative stage. And as you saw also that we will have them all related, and we want to in a way that you can start from anywhere. But our recommendation or way of thinking that we had for this protocol was that it starts from initiative. a group of people that feel there are some difficulties, some problems, some challenges, and they want to overcome by gathering together and having a sustainable business model. So next slide, please. So as you see here, in the sustainable business model, at the end of the whole process, when you go from every stage, these 4 stages, if you can say next slide, please. Yes. If you look at this, you will go through 4 stages: initiating outputs and learning outputs and then strategizing and reflecting outputs. You will have some, let's say, papers that are visualized, that are documented, that who you are, what is the problem that you are looking for, and then some maps about the issue that you were looking at it, and also some charts and canvas that can help you that how exactly you and your group looking for, looking at this issue to organize or to tackle it, and then also how you are monitoring it. Of course, in the protocol itself, that is in our deliverable, there are lots of explanations, examples, and guidelines. I just wanted to go through the, let's say, important parts and what is exactly the essence of this protocol that we are talking about, and what it will be at the end. At the end, it will be 4 chapters, that every chapter has some sections, that these sections can help you to understand that exactly where you are positioning yourself and how you have to go forward. For the aim of this, let's say, a session that we have, of course, we cannot go through all these stages and sessions, so we decided to have a cherry pick and having some parts working and see that whether it works for you or not. So we decided to have this system map and also output from the triple layered strategizing stage, the triple layered business model canvas, and see that how you are looking at it and seeing at it, and it will go through the Miro workshop that we have if you are ready. And all of you, your contribution is are welcome. So if we start maybe, or if there is any question, ambiguity, I can answer now.
Is there any question about the presentation? We will go to the practical side now, no? But before that, you can voice your doubts or write in the chats.
By the way, I forgot, since I didn't see the slides, I forgot the last 2 slides that I had about the examples. Maybe it is good to also show the examples, no?
Yeah. Michelle, can you put it back, the presentation?
Yes.
Thank you.
I was going to the mirror. So, share the screen. There we go. Okay. So,
The last 2,
yes.
Michelle.
Yeah, this is the example for the stage 2 that we say about this understanding and how we make sense of the problem. As you see, for example, there are some negative, as I told you, for example, there are some labels, some arrows, positive or negative. Of course, the real world is much more complicated than that, but we try through this causal loop diagram, for example, to a little bit simplify it and understand it better to tackle the issue that we have. You see some issues and also interventions, that how interventions may be can have a positive impact and reduce that issue that we are thinking about. So, next slide, please. And this is, for example, the example of the triple layered business model canvas that is from the master thesis of one of the students who worked on the cases of EcoBoot-derived Lingohoff. This is the economic version that you see, for example, the value proposition, customer relationships, revenue streams. It doesn't give the number itself. It gives the strategic view on what do we have and how we can organize to make this, let's say, value that we want. Next slide, please. You see example for the social layer part. And the next slide, please. Here is the environmental layer. As you see, all of them, there are different sections. Doesn't necessarily mean that all of them has to be filled everywhere, but depends on the initiative. It may be filled completely at one point. One part is more important and get more attention, and the other part maybe it is less at this stage, less important at this stage, let's say. But our aim is that to make this balance between economic, social, and environmental aspects that we are thinking about. Yeah, I think this is the example I wanted to show, sorry. So we can go to the practical part.